2 months ago, we saw the slowest March sales in 23 years. Now, 2 months later, still no pleasant surprise. The May Market Watch report just came out and we have now recorded the worst May sales in over 2 decades. Some are calling this the quietest spring market they have ever seen. Some unofficial research says that over 66% of Ontario real estate agents had zero transaction in the first quarter of 2025, and tens of thousands of agents have already left the industry. On the other hand, there's a very different energy from agents who lived through the 1990s housing crash, the worst downturn in Canadian real estate history. They have seen this movie before. To them, this is just another cycle, and they are calling it the best time to buy. So, how do we compare the current market downturn with the crash in the 1990s? Are we better off today, or are we in even deeper trouble? I'm going to let the numbers tell their story. Number 1. Sales activities. In the 1990s, the market crash was gradual. In 1988, just before the crash, the GTA saw over 49,000 sales for the year. 2 years later, by 1990, it drops to 38,000, a 22% drop. Another 2 years later, in 1992, there was a further 13% drop to around 33,000, and it continued to inch lower each year, finally bottoming out in 1996 at just 27,000 sales. That's a 45% drop from peak to bottom over a 7 to 8 years period. Now, let's compare to what we have seen in the past 4 years. In 2021, the GTA recorded an all-time high of over 121,000 home sales. By 2022, the drop to 75,000, a 38% drop in just 1 year. In 2023, it declined further to only around 65,000 sales. And now, in 2025, we are seeing new record low sales. Last month in May, we only had around 6,000 sales. That's a 48% drop from May 2021. So if we compare the two market downturns in terms of sales, the one in the 1990s was slowly bleeding, while the current one is very sudden and unexpected, just like dropping off a cliff. Number 2, price drop. In 1989, the average home price in the GTA was around $273,000. By 1996, prices had bottomed out at around $168,000. That's a 38% decline over 7 years. Now, fast forward to 2022. In February 2022, the average GTA home price hit a record high of $1.33 million, driven by cheap borrowing and pandemic buying frenzy. As of May 2025, with the huge drop in sales activities, we are seeing roughly 15 to 20% price drop from peak prices. Did you see a major difference between the two market downturns? In the 1990s, sales dropped 45% and prices dropped 38% over 7 years period. The drop in sales and the drop in prices were slow and proportional. Sales declined steadily and prices followed at a similar pace, a gradual synchronized downturn over several years. But today, we are seeing a completely different pattern. Sales have collapsed down almost 50% from the peak in just a couple years. Yet, prices are holding up relatively well with only a 15 to 20% drop from the 2022 highs. Let's see if we can explain why prices are much more sticky this time. Number 3, interest rates. In the 1990s, interest rates were brutal. Mortgage rates hit 13 to 14%, and that killed affordability instantly. Today, interest rates are high by modern standards, but historically speaking, they are very moderate. The Bank of Canada overnight rate is 2.75%, and the 5-year fixed mortgage rate sit at around 4%. Although the Bank of Canada has decided to hold the interest rate for now at the June announcement a few days ago, market expectations still suggest additional rate cuts by the end of 2025, bringing the rates down to around 2%. Number 4, overall economy. Back in the early 90s, Canada was hit by a deep and prolonged recession. GDP shrank for multiple quarters and unemployment peaked at around 12% by 1992. Mortgage rates were around 12 to 14%, making borrowing extremely expensive. There was little government support at the time, and credit was much harder to access. Consumer confidence collapsed because of massive layoffs. Many homeowners were forced to sell. Fast forward to 2025, we are in a very different situation. While inflation was a major concern after the pandemic, and the interest rate did rise sharply in 2022 and 2023, the economy has not entered a formal recession. GDP growth has been slow but remained mostly positive, and unemployment is holding steadily at around 5 to 6%. Government intervention during COVID injected significant liquidity into households and businesses. Number 5, immigration. Back in the 1990s, immigration levels were at around 250,000 new permanent residents per year, and that was during a full-blown recession with high unemployment, widespread job losses, and weak housing demand across the board. Fast forward to 2021 and 2022, immigration surged to over 400,000 new permanent residents per year, plus a massive number of international students and foreign workers. But in 24 and 25, the government suddenly hit the brakes on immigration because of significant pressure on housing affordability. This sharp policy shift on immigration is a major contribution for the current market downturn. Here's the thing, in the 1990s, the housing crash was driven by a true economy collapse. There was a recession, widespread job losses, and massive negative equity. People were under immediate financial stress, and many were forced to sell at steep losses. Today, the market correction is not driven by broken economy, but by affordability pressure from high interest rate. That's why prices are falling much more slowly this time. Sellers still have jobs. It is a tough market, no doubt. But many people are still able to manage to rent out their properties even at a negative cash flow and ride out the storm. They are not being forced to sell. Many sellers are mentally anchored to high prices. Even when listings sit for months, they are reluctant to drop prices significantly. They pull the listing, rent it out, or wait for a better time. This wait and see mindset is helping to soften the price drop. What's more, this entire correction has been driven by unprecedented man-made events. We printed record amount of money during COVID that triggers a buying frenzy and then runaway inflation. The Bank of Canada responded with aggressive rate hikes. Then, just as the market was adjusting, the government slashed immigration, cutting off a major source of housing demand. And now, Donald Trump dominates the headlines, threatening tariffs and creating global uncertainties. This isn't a typical business cycle. It is a chain of extreme policy decisions, but that also means it could turn quickly. If interest rates drop faster, if immigration ramp back up, if trade tension cools down, we could see a shift in market momentum. So stay sharp and stay informed. Let's take it month by month. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss anything in the future.